And welcome to another edition of the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network. WCOM in Chapel Hill, our sister station. Big Mind Entertainment. You can watch the show if you download that app on Fire Stick or Roku. Of course, all the iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Spotify. We're all over the place. And if you want to listen to the rebroadcast, the audio version of this, you can go to thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. Want to bring in my guest patiently on the line. Good to have him on. He's the sports director of urbanmediatoday.com and co-owner and producer for Urban Media Today, colleague of mine. He is Trevin A. Jones. And Trevin, it's always good to have you on. It's been a few times, but when you're on, you're impactful, sir.
I appreciate that, Mr. Batchelor. And the first thing I want to say is HBCU Pro Sports Media Association, which you truly are a member as well. Doing big things this year. I'm excited. If you hear the excitement in my voice, it's because like myself and Mr. Batchelor here have come together and we'll become a force covering the medium, using the medium to cover Black college sports, the spectrum. So I definitely wanted to put that out there first and foremost. Greatly appreciate your participation. And thanks for having me, man. I'm always happy to be here.
Absolutely. And Happy New Year to you, bro. I really appreciate you being on.
I wish you the same.
So, we do these polls and Urban Media Today did a really good poll. I know you're doing a basketball. We'll get into as you break it down in the article. I think that's the best way to do it. But what's different that you have a top 25 in HBCU hoops as opposed to, say, a top 15 in HBCU football? Are you keeping it along the lines of, the NCAA D1 type stuff, or what went into a 25?
Definitely. I think LA, to be totally honest with you, I haven't seen it done before.
Right.
And I think the opportunity has always been there, but people tend to put up their own barriers. I've learned, Dr. Cavill actually pointed this out to us in a conversation. You might have been part of that conversation. When you look at all these polls, the bottom line is to get exposure for the institutions involved, to let people know that these young athletes are making things happen on the court. So when you're looking at rankings and you're looking at polls, it takes your attention to the particular institution to see what's happening. And if you happen to be a fan and you partake in the games on a regular basis, that just heightens the experience. So having never seen this done before, and people will say, you always have your people who will be negative in a sense. And I say that that way for a reason. When you have 80 schools that participate in basketball, when you're looking at the Black college prism, the HBCU sports prism, you have 80 or 82 schools that participate on one level or another, whether it be NAIA, Division II, Division I, and then you have some junior colleges that are out there as well. Well, those schools, some people don't even know they exist. Some people don't even know their programs exist. So when you have rankings such as the ones that we've done, and the motivation here was, like you said, the AP comes out with a top 25. Okay. HBCUs can have a top 25 as well. Now, you might not agree with every ranking or position or anything that's happening, but that's the purpose of the poll, to get there so that it brings to your attention that these schools are actually playing ball and have some great teams. You have players that are going into the pros from some of these schools. So that's the main motivation for a top 25 HBCU, men and women, by the way, because it helps these institutions get the exposure that they greatly deserve.
And we're going to get to the women too. So we have the men and women top 25. What about some schools? I know when we had conversations about on the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association, when we were talking about polls with AD Drew and everybody, we were talking about schools that we should consider that may not be really HBCU, to kind of borderline, or maybe they're playing in PWIs now, or different criteria. Did you look at that when you guys put the poll together?
To be totally transparent and honest with you, and I may be putting a negative mark next to the Urban Media Today Black College football, the HBCU Pro, the Black College Basketball poll. Urban Media Today, Black College Basketball poll, men's and women's. In the past, I did not. If you were in the HBCU conference, we would have you ranked, but it was brought to our attention, and not to discriminate.
Right, and you're
But
not. It's a
right.
fair, uh, question and answer. It's nothing, evil that you're saying about it. So,
Oh, definitely not.
right,
So this year we did not. I know you have Spring Hill competing in the HBCU conference. In the past, you have in Chowan, you have them competing in the HBCU conference, but they're not an HBCU.
right,
They can still win the conference title, of course, but they would not be. They would not win an HBCU Black College National Championship. They're not an HBCU.
right, and that makes sense. I mean, that makes perfect sense. Has nothing to do with any, negative light on that institution, but that's, if we're trying to highlight and accentuate the positives of those pure HBCUs, if you will,
Mhm.
then that makes a lot of sense. Um, let's get to the top 25. I want to work 25 up, but what is the
Mhm.
criteria in terms of, and I know it's a lot, so I can make it personal to you, like what's your criteria in terms of how you rank, but what about some of the other posters, some of the people that vote? What have you seen in terms of, or heard in terms of how they rank these specific teams?
Well, Urban Media Today's HBCU Black College Basketball poll, men and women's, is based on overall record, winning percentage, and strength of schedule. So that's the bottom line. And the reason it has to be that way is because in order for us to be taken seriously and to be legitimate, keep in mind some of these sports information directors, once they get a hold of the poll, they may have that in their game notes. So you have to have a criteria that's consistent with everyone else across the board. Now, when you're looking at records, conference records, as well as the overall record, that plays a factor. We also, in the Urban Media Today Black College Basketball polls, we pay attention to competition, like competition. So we'll actually see how many wins and losses you have against Black college teams. So that could be a factor as well when you look at the ratings, the rankings, and the ratings. Now, what I'm not going to do this evening, and I heard you say I want to go from 25 to number one. I'm not going to do that, because what I would like your listeners to do is actually go to urbanmediatoday.com. Now, you and I
Right.
will talk about a couple of teams and some rankings, but once they hear some of the rankings, I would hope it would pique their interest to actually go to the urbanmediatoday.com page and actually look at the poll. One thing that we will do moving forward, we didn't do it this week. The poll just came out, and you got it right off the presses, hot off the presses. It just came out on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning. Moving forward, it's going to come out every Monday. So that means Sunday night, the poll will be in, the rankings will be in and released on Monday morning. Now, the reason for that is Sunday is usually a down day during the season, during the weeks. No one's usually playing on Sundays. So that's when you can tabulate everything that's gone on, have your number one team heading into the next week. So by the end of the next week, you can go back, look at everything, and have a new poll out by the following Monday.
If you're just joining us, we'll talk with Trevor Day Jones, Sports Director of UrbanMediaToday.com, co-owner and producer for Urban Media Today Radio, and of course, our fearless leader of the HBCU Pro Sports Media Association here on the Batchelor News Radio Show. I would like to ask,
Mhm.
Trevin, uh, you see a lot of polls out there, especially in basketball and the D1s, and
Mhm.
even the conferences put out preseason polls, All
Right.
Americans, all that. Any thought go into that, or instead of waiting for a few games and then coming out with this first poll?
No, and the reason I say that is because, and I say that with emphasis, when it comes to the HBCUs, traditionally in the past, they've taken on a lot of big time. You know what? I dislike using the term playing up, but
Right.
we know it is what it is. They would play major powerhouse schools early October, November, December. That impacts your record, because your record, you're looking at it and it's like, okay, if I played above my level, so to speak, let's say you have a D2 school that's playing D1 schools through the whole. preseason. By the time they get to conference play, they could be 0-15 or 0-17, but they could be a really good team. So what we do is we wait until conference play at least gets started so that you can get a better barometer of what the HBCU spectrum looks like competition. So when you're asking about the preseason polls or the preseason rankings as far as players are concerned, we're not looking at the individuals. We're looking at the school and its performance. And we think that, and we've done it for the past 5 years, we've always started by the second week in January so that we can get some conference play, allow teams to get conference play under their belt and get a better look at the picture that's being created.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And I think if they do come in 0-15, it takes away the credibility. Not that you need any credibility, because it's you guys are legit, some of the best in the business. It takes away if the teams are 2-17 in the poll or whatever. You know, it just doesn't have the right optics, if that makes any sense. So I had to ask that because I had some people say, well, you know, why don't they do a preseason poll? And what you just said makes a heck of a lot of sense with that. Now, when I look at the men's side, and yeah, not to give up a lot of information, one of the things I see is it just at first look, I looked at it yesterday, I kind of looked again today and again tonight. There's a lot of CIAA teams in there. And a few SIAC, certainly the SWAC is represented. Don't see much on the MEAC side. Is that indicative of the play, the talent, what you think the conferences will be? How did that kind of come about? Outside of the individual schools, in other words, if I see Virginia State, Virginia, Bowie, and all these teams, like 7 or 8 CIAA teams, but I only see, say, Norfolk State and the MEAC, what does that mean?
It means just what it is. Where you see the school ranked, that's what their play is overall, because you're looking at the whole spectrum. You're not just looking at just the conference. Now, in the past, and I will admit this, the CIAA has been a strong basketball conference. The MEAC has been a pretty strong basketball conference. The SWAC has been more looked at as a football conference as opposed to a basketball conference. Now, I say all that to say this. Don't get it twisted. They still get the same respect when we put down the figures and we start to figure everything out. And when you're looking at the winning percentage, the school records, and the conference play, that is, like I said, strength of schedule is a major factor. Winning percentage, major factor. So when you see that and you look at, you may see, quite a few CIAA teams, but then look at the records that they have. And then when you compare those records to the whole spectrum, to the records of other schools throughout the 80 schools that you're actually looking at, that's why they end up where they ended up ranking, because it's them compared to the whole, not just, in one region or one certain area of the basketball spectrum.
Let's kind of go through some of the conferences. You tell me, because you cover this closely, the team to beat, maybe the team to watch, and who would be sort of, if you can, and agree, players of the year. Let's start with the SWAC. You got teams like, the FAMs and all those, well, not FAM, but some teams in the SWAC that they're FAM coming in newly to the conference, which is going to be interesting in itself. Teams, a team to watch in that conference, and a team probably is sort of the clear favorite and maybe a player of the year.
Well, the player of the year, I mean, I'm just going to leave that open because we're still early in the conference. And a lot of times I've seen players just come through as, when you get to the heart of the conference play and you get closer to the conference tournaments. So I'm not one, like, it's too early for me to even name a player of the year or even consider one, because again, this is only we're going into the third week of January. So Some teams have just started their conference play. So I'm not trying to elude the question, but just me personally, the way I look at these things, I always hear people say, well, this person's the best, this person's that. And it's like, okay, well, let's see what happens as they get through the conference play, get to the tournament, maybe even make it to the postseason. That's when I look at a player of the year. But some teams to look at in the SWAC, definitely, Southern is definitely one. Southern is in our poll. You Jaguar fans, they're at number 14. And you might say 14, but I mean, go to urbanmediatoday.com and look at the entire poll. We're talking about 25 teams. Another team to look at, which is surprising in the SWAC, is FAMU. You mentioned them, but they're actually on the poll. They're in there at number 24 right now. But this is the interesting thing, LA. FAMU has a record of 7-11. Okay, Southern, they have a record in the SWAC right now. Well, they're 10-8, but they have a winning record and they're in the top 25. FAMU's in the top 25 with a losing record. So that gives respect to the SWAC and the conference play. Texas Southern is really known to be pretty good in the SWAC on a traditional basis, as well as Prairie View. Those are teams that you would keep an eye on. But for right now, Southern and FAMU are the two teams that are actually in our top 25 poll from the SWAC on the men's side.
CIAA.
Man, I say it like that to say anybody that's on the East Coast that's familiar with CIAA basketball, they've always gone all in. And I don't mean that. I don't prefer that conference over any other conference. But when you're just talking about conferences known as the basketball conference, the CIAA is definitely one of them. They have a few teams in the poll, in the rankings. And I'm not going to mention all of them because, again, I want you to go see who's in there. But right now, leading the way for the CIAA, I think their record right now is 7-1 and they're 13-4 overall. Virginia Union, believe it or not, they're there at the number 6 spot on the men's side. And then you have, I think, four or five more CIAA teams that are in the rankings. Go check it out. I think you'll find it very interesting to see the CIAA teams that are in there. One thing I will point out is there's no CIAA team in the top 25 with a losing record.
Right. And, it'll be interesting to see what Coach Blow does. Their team is always there at the end. They always seem like they're playing in the tournament. Incidentally, someone said with FAM, did FAM get a lower ranking because of them being new to the SWAC? Okay.
Not at all. That didn't even have a factor. If you look at FAMU and you look at their record, you look at their conference record, and you look at their overall record, that's why they had that ranking there. Now, I will say this, though. When you see a team in the top 25 that has a losing record, 9 times out of 10, that would be a team that's playing at the Division I level. Because, again, the strength of conference does come into play. I mean, strength of schedule does come into play as an indicator and a factor.
One other, we'll get to others. The MEAC, you can mention them, team to watch out or a team to beat. And the GCAC, a very interesting a conference, and they always seem to do pretty good in the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. That's a conference that usually has somebody in the playoffs at the end of the season. For those people who aren't paying attention, they are in the NAIA. They usually have maybe 3 or 4 teams in postseason play. And again, when you're looking at rankings, the rankings get exposure for these schools. When you're looking at the GCAC right now, Tougaloo,
right,
always at the top of a poll, has always been around the top 10, have always been in our over the past. And you know what, LA, I'll go back and say, as far as even our original poll, the initial poll 5 years ago, Tougaloo was in there. They were in the mix. So that's a school that you definitely want to look out for and pay attention to them. Rust College. People may say Rust College. Yes, Rust College. Men and women have been known to have good basketball teams. And that has even been pointed out even more, again, over the past 5 years as we've done these rankings every year. And a lot of people, LA, don't even know we've been doing these top 25 rankings for the past 5 years, to be honest with you.
Right. And that's a great point. You want to make sure you go to urbanmediatoday.com. And the way they have it set up, and I'm going to ask you about the women's side, but folks, the way they have it set up, it's like if you don't understand the poll, if you miss your alma mater or a school that you follow last game or what have you, they have scores right there in between the poll. Like you scroll down and you'll see a game that took place. Oh, by the way, here's the next next five, and then so on and so forth. Just designed really well. Great stuff, up there. Let's go to the women's side, because the women's side is a little different in terms of the conferences that you have in there. CIAA is still represented, like you said. You got teams there, but the SIAC has some good representation, and the SWAC as well.
Oh, most definitely. And before I go there, if you don't mind, for those who may know me or know who I am a Norfolk State Spartan. So behold the green and gold. At the top of the men's poll, the number one spot right now is the Spartans of Norfolk State. Now, that was not me being favorite or playing favorite. Right now, they're on a 5-game winning streak. They're 14-4 overall. They are unbeaten in conference play. So I don't want someone to look at that and say, wait a minute, Trevin Jones, didn't he go to Norfolk State? Norfolk State's number one. No, That has nothing to do with that whatsoever. Right. So I definitely would have put that out there. Moving over to the women, I want to say a surprise, but I'm not surprised. The Savannah State, the Lady Tigers are doing their thing. Now they were at one time in the MEAC. They're now in the SIAC. On top of the conference, they've only had one loss. And the thing about that, though, LA, is their one loss. It came at the hands of Benedict. Now, Benedict actually won our national championship, I think, 2 years ago before the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, we didn't do one last year. We didn't even, because there was no season. So when you're looking at Benedict, Savannah State, Lincoln University, that team, the women there, the Lady Lions had played great ball 2 years ago, and they're continuing to do that as well. It's there in the poll as well, in the rankings. And then you mentioned the SWAC. Well, this year, Jackson State, they're 9-6. They're undefeated in conference play at this time. At the time of the rankings, they're undefeated, but they're at number 7. And then again from the SWAC, you have representation. The Southern women, they're doing their thing. They've always normally been in our rankings as well. Right now they're 8-10. But again, go to urbanmediatoday.com. Look at the Urban Media Today Women's HBCU Top 25 poll to see where your favorite institution is sitting right now. And I think you'll just be pleasantly surprised. If you do see a team in the rankings, normally it's a team that's at the Division I level, because again, strength of schedule is definitely plays a major factor.
And you're right, and it's a great poll. You guys really put some work into it in terms of your thoughts and your credentials and criteria to put it together. And again, folks, you have to check out the poll. He's not biased. Trust and believe. Trevin is not biased when it comes to. I mean, he's a Spartan. He gonna let you know he's a Spartan, but it had nothing to do with them being number one. Right. One other thing I wanted to get your thoughts on, and that's the combine, the 2022 HBCU combine coming up on matter of fact tomorrow, and my guy Barry Barnes will be there live tomorrow to do that 28th and 29th time of this broadcast. Right. But it's going to be immobile. They mentioned a lot of the players. Keith Glass is going to be there. He's a stud. Felix Harvard, Alcorn State, a bunch of Alcorn State, Delaware State. I don't know if it's legit or serious. Should we take the NFL and what they do? We know COVID canceled the first one, but they're inviting these guys. How serious should we take the NFL doing this? Do you think they'll continue to do it? And do you think this will open the door for more players? I mean, we got guys from South Carolina State already in the NFL. If you can play, they'll find you. But how much more this will help our kids going to these programs and hopefully getting into the NFL?
Just like we spoke about earlier with the Urban Media Today HBCU men and women's top 25 rankings for basketball, that is an opportunity. That is a platform. So I say we should take this very seriously because, as you know, from the pandemic, great things have grown and been developed. HBCU Pro Sports Media Association, with the media's coverage of the Black college spectrum. As long as we get the opportunity and we take it serious, it gives room for more things to happen. So let's say that the NFL doesn't do this next year. They canceled last year because of the pandemic. I got that. And let's say they do it this year, but then they decide they don't do it next year. Well, I would say this: if it's given players like Trey Gross from Delaware State, awesome wide receiver, a chance to go out and show that he has the talent to play at the next level. If it gives cats like Felix Harper, who, if anybody's been following college football and seen Felix play at quarterback,
Right.
know that he's an awesome quarterback. If this one opportunity is giving them a chance to at least be seen, then we should all take it serious. And I say that to say this: if we take it serious as a whole, and the NFL should kind of renege or start to back down, then we as a whole, if anyone hasn't learned from the pandemic or from COVID, you are one of the people who knows as well as I do. Unity in numbers is now key. So if this should not happen next year or something should, get in the way, then it's up to us to step up and say, wait a minute. If you were able to successfully have the combine this year and allow our players, and I say ours because I'm speaking about HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, and the men and women that come out of it, if you were able to give them this opportunity this year, then you can definitely give them the opportunity again. And what's the factor? And once we understand what the factor is that may prevent it from happening, if we take it seriously, we can step up and help them overcome that and say, okay, well, let's do it.
Yeah. And the only follow-up with that is I was just looking at the list, and I don't know if it's a coincidence, but there are a lot of D1AA, if you will, up there, the Norfolk States, the Texas Southerns, the Alcorn States, and I think I might have seen a few Virginia states in there. There's some Norfolk states in there. So I don't know if it's a coincidence or whatever, but you see a lot more of the programs that are competing, with the PWIs at the D1 level as opposed to D2. Mm-hmm. I don't, and so I just wanted to throw that in there. And we'll see what happens with it. Like you said, if this is a one-shot deal, then we need to raise some cane and strengthen numbers. So you're absolutely right. Trevor, before you go, let people know about urbanmediatoday.com again, HBCU Sports Media, because we certainly want some more talent, if you will, and how people can follow you.
Oh, most definitely. You can follow me very simply on Twitter at Ice Code Alpha. I use that because that's the easiest way and the simplest way. So just follow me on Ice Code Alpha on Twitter. And then urbanmediatoday.com, part of the Urban Media Today sports team. Go to urbanmediatoday.com, look up Urban Media Today Top 25 HBCU Women's Basketball Poll and Urban Media Today Top 25 HBCU Men's Basketball Poll. I'm quite sure you won't be disappointed. What we've done is we've also did a Black college poll as well, Bowie State, were the champions this year. I will also have a TAJ Talented 10th Black College All-American team announced at the end of the month. And what we'll do for Black History Month is we will actually recognize a player from the HBCU, from the Black College All-American team throughout the month of February. We've done that for the past 3 years as well. So we'll put a profile on the website honoring each of those players as well as the Coach of the Year. HBCU Pro Sports Media Association. You heard me stumble and trip up over that many times because, as LA knows, we've been very busy, and I've been saying that a lot. HBCU Pro Sports Media Association. Definitely go to our website there. Check that out. You can follow us on Twitter at HBCU Pro, which I like that. And it's open to all. Any HBCU person covering HBCU sports. Any person that's matriculating from HBCUs going into covering sports on a professional level, and it's open. Sports information directors, anybody who's on the website that actually legitimately covers HBCU sports in the spectrum, more than welcome to become a member. Go to the website. You can actually sign up there as well. We've grown. LA knows we've grown from the original members, founding members. I think it was 19 of us. We're now standing at about 42 members, 43 members, and are still growing. So check that out. If you have questions, we definitely will be here to answer those as well. I think I overtalked my time, huh?
Hey, we got one of our buddies, our colleagues, Fred Whitted, on the line. So I'm sure Fred understands. But listen, Trevin, it's always a pleasure having you on. Let's do this more, man. When you get the time, I know you're a very busy man. But thanks for stopping by. You be blessed and be careful, and you and your family. Okay.
Happy New Year to you, man. I appreciate you. I'm always here for you.
Thank you, sir. Always good to have Trevin A. Jones on to talk some HBCU sports with us. And of course, it's Urban Media today.com. You can see the top 25 men and women's top 25. And, you will be pleasantly surprised when you go there and check it out. If you don't know about the games and the sports, if you're, a beginner, it's a good way to understand what the HBCU football experience and those programs are about. Take a 30-second break, come back on the Batchelor News radio show. Stay tuned.
May I help you?
Yeah, it's just cold. My sinuses feel like they're going to explode.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
My allergies have my sinuses all stuffed up.
Sudafed, aisle 5.
Tell the man what's wrong.
My sinuses. Sudafed, aisle 5.
Sinus misery? Get Sudafed. Nothing stronger at relieving even your worst sinus symptoms. Not even a prescription.
This could just...
Sudafed, aisle 5! Sudafed, prescription strength sinus relief. Based on 24-hour dose of pseudoephedrine.
Welcome to the Batchelor News radio show. Thank you for joining us once again on Big Mind Entertainment. If you have the Fire Stick or Roku, you can download Big Mind Entertainment app and watch the show there. You watch it on YouTube. Please subscribe. If you go to YouTube, subscribe there at LA Batchelor. You can listen to the show on WCOM in Chapel Hill. And, of course, our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. I want to bring in my guest. Always a pleasure to have him on. He is an HBCU historian and author of many books. He is Fred Whitted. Anybody that tells you more about the history of HBCUs that knows more than Fred, I've never met him. But Fred, it's always good to have you on, sir. Okay, we're trying to get Fred in there. Let's try to... Okay. See if we can get Fred on the line. What we're going to do is pull him out and get him back in there. Get him back on the line shortly. Fred, of course, covers HBCUs as Trevin A. Jones as well. He's written an HBCU encyclopedia, Winston-Salem State, Fayetteville State, and, he is definitely one of the good ones. Let's do this. I'm going to bring Trevin A. back in till we get Fred back on the line. Trevin, I appreciate you hanging on. When we get Fred on the line, one of the things I was going to ask him was about, and we haven't really talked about it. We haven't talked about it at all. Is this wave of former pro athletes, in particular black ones. Some of them gone to HBCU, some have gone to PWIs, predominantly white institutions, for people who don't know what that means. And now being sort of this pipeline, they're coming in a lot of places, Dion being the most famous, of course, back into HBCUs. And I want to get your thoughts on that in terms of what you think, if anything, is going to, help in terms of diversity.
There's two sides to that. One side is a great side. I love it because, as you saw with Coach Prime, they're calling it the Prime effect. You saw the exposure. So, Dion is Dion. I always say that, Coach Sanders, he was the only student athlete that I know of that was a brand before he even left school.
Right.
So he's just different. But what I do like is joining him when you have Eddie George, who actually went to Ohio State, but Eddie George seeing the significance and getting the opportunity at HBCU and taking advantage of it. Jerry Rice has even talked about maybe coaching at the HBCU level, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in his case, I truly love that because he's an alum of Mississippi Valley State. So if you have these professional athletes that go have their careers in their sport at the professional level, and they could come back and coach, I love it. Now, the other side of that, that kind of prevents coaches who have put in the time and have been at certain institutions for years. Now you have someone who may not have the experience coming in and getting a head coaching job based on their notoriety, as opposed to the experience that you put in over the years.
I feel like this is I don't know, a different way in terms of HBCUs of not the Rooney Rule, but something along the lines, it seems, unintentionally. In other words, if it's done right, if we continue to get more splash men and women coaching HBCUs, then diversity may take care of itself. We still have issues where, they want us, to buy the groceries, but like Parcell said, but we can't cook it. We can't sit at the table and even eat it, And so from that standpoint, do you think it can have that effect? I mean, we'll talk about, the NFL and that Rooney thing, but as far as it goes with, the Deons and the Eddie George, as you mentioned, and others have come in, do you think that it almost has to be a way? It's almost a way that it'll be forcing some form of diversity or balance into HBCU coaching.
I don't know about forcing. I love history. I love Black history. I'm also a sports fanatic, as if you can tell. So and as I look at the coaches who have come before, basketball, you look at Coach Clarence Big House Games. In football, you look at Coach Gaither. You look at Coach Robinson. I think we're going back to where we came, and I say that this way, and I referenced those gentlemen initially because don't sleep. HBCU sports was big time back in the day, and I think that once you had, for lack of a better way of putting it, when you had segregation, desegregation coming in full force and full effect, and then you had certain things taking place in history when you look at the football games and how the SEC was all white at one time. You're looking at other conferences who were all white at one time, and then now had the opportunity to get these Black players, men and women. Right now, I think we're just going back to that, towards like, okay, well, the talent is here. So now the people who respect that history, some of these pro athletes and men and women, they're saying, well, wait a minute, I can go back home. And now that I can go back home, I can actually help. And the young ones are picking up on this more so than previous generations. If I can go back home and play, then that actually lifts the institution. So if I'm that good at what I do, it doesn't matter where I'm playing. I'm going to actually increase the value of who and where I'm playing. And I'm loving it, LA, to be honest with you, because now it's like you're bringing the riches back home, so that we all can become greater and wealthier and get the exposure that we so greatly deserve.
I'm going to try to see if we can get Fred in here. Fred, can you hear us now? Fred needs to turn. He needs to unmute his mic. I'll definitely let him know that. I'm gonna keep him right there. When you look at it, Trevin, some of I've mentioned, we mentioned Deion Sanders, we mentioned Eddie George. Let's not forget what Cynthia Cooper is doing with Texas Southern, the Lady Tigers there.
Without question.
Hugh Jackson with Grambling State. He's been an NFL coach forever. Mo Williams was an NBA vet. He's coaching at Alabama State. So do they have to be big names, or do they have to make it to the highest level to be able to, I don't know, I want to say have the credibility or the splash to make that impact?
No, because they haven't in the past. They haven't had to use it. Kudos to the coaches that you mentioned and to the coaches that we did not mention, because coaches know the key has been how well can you recruit. How comfortable are you walking into a recruit's home and sitting down and speaking with the parents? How good is the system that you're using to get the big time talent to come to your school? I don't think that our Black coaches, assistant coaches, and scouts, men and women, get the respect that's due, because they only. And the thing that I love is, in me having gone to an HBCU, the thing that I love when you're looking at these coaches is that they actually make you part of their family. And I don't think that. And I have to watch what I say. I don't think other schools outside of the HBCU realm or spectrum actually get that type of person as the coaches. And no disrespect to any coaches out there. I know they all look out for their athletes, but I know from firsthand experience at HBCUs, it's more of a family. So I think that's where a lot of the young ones now, they're looking at that like, okay, so I'm gonna be away from home. How am I going to be treated? Are you going to get me here and then promise me one thing and then I don't get that? Are you going to get me here and tell me that I'll make the team and then I end up not making the team? That type of thing. So I think that's key. That's something that I believe that's always been done at the HBCU level with the coaches, and assistant coaches in their systems.
We're talking with Trevin A. Jones here on the Batchelor News Radio Show. Don't forget the rebroadcast. You can look at our website, listen at our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro, and you can watch it on YouTube at LA Batchelor. Are you in the corner, the camp that has some issues with, coaches using the HBCUs as a stepping stone and moving forward, especially if it is, and I'm not, because we talked about Prime, especially if it's a guy like Deion that, he's already been rumored to go all over the place, to go coach the Dolphins and, go coach the Cowboys and, all over the place. So are you in that camp that has an issue if they stay around for 2 or 3 years and then they move on and they get some big time job somewhere else?
No. Not at this point, especially I think the proof is in the pudding. I think everybody's keeping an eye on Deion to see actually what he's going to do, because if he just stays a year or two and then he's gone, then I think it will leave people or give people the opportunity to question his motive. But if he's around for maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe even a 5th year, I think that the proof right there is in the pudding, that he is actually true to what he promised and what he said once he started coaching at an HBCU. The thing that I like about this whole thing, LA, I can't wait for Fred to speak because I know he has a lot that he's going to talk about. The thing I like about this is that what Deion has done is he's put a spotlight on us. And not only has he done that, but he stood behind everything that he said in doing it. He's going out and said, okay, I'm a recruit and I'm not going to limit myself as to who I recruit. I'm going after the same people that you're going after, because that's what we deserve at an HBCU. He's actually making people become more aware and remove that divider, so to speak, for lack of a better way of saying it. There aren't levels. Okay. It's like LA. If you're a top notch recruit, the number 1 recruit in the country, I'm coming after you too.
Right. And he's done that. And it's been, player hating from everybody. It's been like, well, and here's, listen, being an alum and a product of one, how the quality of black colleges, not just the sports we're talking about it, but we've had great people since the beginning of time, right? When these institutions put together have done incredible things,
Mm-hmm.
in all walks of life, not just sports. But so you understand that. But I heard a national, I guess you want to call him, he's got a radio show. Um, he's a non-African American, right? Said that when Dion got the top recruit, to come to the school next year, that he's just absolutely wasting his career. Who's going to go and check out, this team? You don't get the right facilities, and he's just going on and on. Code for a lot of racist, stereotypical stuff about HBCUs. What's your thoughts on that? Because that we know how good they are, and I would say we have to overcome, but there's still that narrative out there, Trevor.
Those that don't know, don't know. And until you bring them to the table and let them sit down and see, before you let them eat, make them see and respect, then they'll know. But those who don't know, and then there's those who don't want to know, and just want to send a negative connotation. So it's up to the young ones. And I say this to all of you young ones out there, men and women who have a great talent and who know you are talented. Check out HBCUs when you check out every other school. And if I guarantee you, and I'll be so bold to say that because I know in past experience, when I look at Coach Blakeney at Howard, when I look at Coach Moten at North Carolina Central, when I look at Coach Grace, the ladies coach at Howard, and you mentioned Coach Cynthia Cooper, when you go to these HBCUs and you get with these coaches treat you like family. Like, I'm not saying everything is going to be perfect and be roses, but I've seen where these coaches actually take care of you. They're looking out for you. And they're molding you to be the great men and women that you're going to become once you graduate from the institution. And they're also concerned about you graduating. So you're not just property, so to speak. You're not just valuable as long as you're balling or hooping or running up and down the football field or the soccer field, even in lacrosse. It's like you are a person. You're not just a commodity. So in response to that, gentleman, LA, I know exactly who you're talking about, and I heard what was said. The only response you can give to something like that is those who don't know, don't know. And ignorance can be a problem.
Right. It really can. And, I just find it still, just amazing that, he would even boldly come out of his mouth like that. And say that. Fred, if you can hear us, just chime in. Go ahead, Trevor. You was about to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, in LA, you also have to keep this in mind. Being a person in the media, just like you are, you have respect for those who cover the sports and even news, and you keep it professional. But in the back of your mind that there are some people who just have an opinion, and they just speak from their opinion. So that doesn't make you a legitimate reporter. Not in any way, shape, or form.
I often said, we're in the HBCU Pro Sports Media. We're having our conference calls. Not everybody can do what we do. I mean, some people wake up in their underwear and blog, and they feel like they're reporters. So that's the reality of it. And people will follow it, especially if you're comfortable. I don't want to go too deep. If you're comfortable with people who look like you, and so that narrative that comes into play, in my opinion. Fred, can you hear us now, Fred? See if I can add Fred. I got Fred in here twice.
I can't wait. Fred
turn your mic, unmute your mic, sir, if you can. If you're just joining us, talking with Trevor A. Jones, too. Hopefully we'll get Fred Whitted. Best-selling author and of course covers HBCUs as good as anybody I know, and I've been covering them since over 20-something years in the business on the Batchelor News radio show. What about, Trevin, about the player, coach, president it may not be the president version in college would be probably, let's say, the GM in the NFL or the NBA, whatever case. But we still have splash coaches coming in, but we still don't see those coaches all the time, not consistently, getting opportunities like a Charlie Strong, who coached at Texas, and then, he took a different job after they let him go. We don't see a lot of them at those levels, even if they have a resume coming from one place to upgrade, number one. And then number two, we don't see the coaching tree. Nick Saban, oh my God, he's got assistant coaches all over the football, at every level. And we had a Nick Saban and Eddie Robinson and some others, and we even have some now. But we don't see those assistants moving on to do different things. It may be in some cases, I'm not saying all, some cases it might be a lateral move, or it might be a move, to a rival, conference institution. You're coaching,
Right.
you're the coach at, say, Norfolk State, and you either go and be an assistant coach at Tennessee State or something, or you become a coach at Virginia State. But it's not something at a PWI. And I don't really, again, I'm not talking about inferior to superior. I'm just saying we got great coaches that have assistant coaches should be a part of that tree that moves on to bigger and better things.
And that's interesting that you say that. And if I may, and I'll make sure I get the information correct when I say this, immediately the gentleman that came to my mind was Coach London,
Right.
who ended up going back to William and Mary to coach. He was coaching at Howard. I mentioned Coach London because of this. I think his son coaches under him too as an assistant. But Coach Brandon Marion, who was the architect behind the go-go offense at Howard University when Kayla Newton was playing there as quarterback. There's a few years ago. But Coach Marion, as I followed him, he may vaguely remember me. For those of you who don't know, I actually am the voice of Howard University football, so I do the play-by-play. Coach Marion has since been at Pitt and is now on his way to, I believe it is Texas. And when you mention the coaching trees, he's from the Coach London coaching tree, and I've been able to watch his development, which has been amazing to me. On a pro level, I want to bring up Coach Dungy. You know who was under Coach Dungy? Coach Tomlin is part of that coaching tree. And Coach Tomlin has been to the Super Bowl just as Coach Dungy has been to the Super Bowl. And I want to go as far as say that Raheem Morris may have been under Coach Dungy's tree as well. I had to double check that. But I mentioned Raheem Morris because you just saw him this weekend in the playoffs on the sideline as an assistant coach. And then gentlemen like that, I mean, I do see the opportunities happening for them. But, I mean, you hear me hesitating and sighing because I want to be careful as to what I say. But anybody that's been following sports and covering sports as long as you and I have, including Fred as well, you either have to be greater than thou or you have to be extraordinary to get the equal opportunity that you deserve. And I still think we have a little bit of that now, to whereas these gentlemen, when you're looking at a coaching tree or trying to see one that's developed, they're just not getting the opportunity. Coach Buddy Pugh, man, I know Coach Pugh has had many assistants come under him as well. And I have great respect for Coach Pugh. I've got to meet him a couple of times to speak with him, the head coach at South Carolina State. Man, I get to talk about so many coaches that should get the opportunity if they desire to be head coaches at the next level. The HBCU coaches I've come across, not all of them, but some of them, they may not have the desire to be a coach at the, it's not even the next level, LA. Let me back up because I don't consider Grambling State any less of a greater team than anybody else. Or go ahead.
Right, and that's what that's why when I backed up and said I don't want to put it like inferior to superior or anything. What I'm saying is at least give them a shot. Definitely. You're gonna tell me that one of our coaches, a Buddy Pugh, who's been around as long, if not longer than a Nick Saban, can't get to a different level of football, D1 level, whatever you want to call it, and be successful. I mean, we know that it's 4 coaches I could think of, as you mentioned, the NFL: Byron Leftwich, Eric Bieniemy, Leslie Frazier, Jim Caldwell, and it was someone, actually 5, but I can think of 4 right now. That probably out of those, maybe one will get a job because of the 9, I think, vacancies.
2 spots are already taken.
2 spots,
today, right?
and they're taken by guys who weren't even listen. They weren't even coordinators.
Nope.
They had the title of OC or DC, but they didn't do any coaching. Correct. They were just figureheads, and they get jobs. Not only that, even at the college level, Trevor, you agree with this? Guys get fired with 3 wins and 16 losses and get a job right down. We got coaches, black coaches, men and women, that do a phenomenal job, winning percentage 65%, whatever, and they waiting for the next job.
No doubt. Can I just say this? I have the utmost respect and the greatest respect for Coach Dawn Staley.
Right.
Oh my goodness. If you're not a South Carolina fan, I know that's not an HBCU, but if you're not a South Carolina fan, look up Coach Staley. Look at her career playing, and then what she's done as a young black woman at the level, coaching at the level that she's coached. I mean, so I just wanted to throw that in there because we were talking about coaches and we were talking about the men. But I mean, I was thinking about Coach Staley and watching her and the way she's developing the women that she's working with. I just had to say, have a great respect for her and what she does.
And by the way, the time of this broadcast, they're blowing out Ole Miss by about 20 points. They've already beaten the top teams in the conference. I mean, across the country. I'm from Connecticut. I'm a UConn fan. They've been kicking our butt since she's got there. And you're right. So even if it's not even South Carolina State, but it's Dawn Staley, a black woman, getting it done at South Carolina, and she's changing. She's opened up the women's game in a sense that it's not just UConn and Tennessee anymore. It's UConn, South Carolina, Baylor, all these other programs that are doing well in the women's game, by the way. And I've said this, anybody that knows me, I say it all the time. The women's game is so much more fundamentally sound than the men. The game is just more, for me, a lot more fluid. Men can fly high and shoot threes all day. Not to say there's no fundamentals in it, but I digress. But to your point, with that the opportunities are not there. Not only the coaching, Trevor, and I've worked at one particular school. I won't say I worked at and worked with. And I know of an SID who was not African American, who's a big time Florida fan. So he will be behind on everything because instead of him doing what a sports information supposed to director supposed to do at the game, coaches, all that kind of stuff, he's on his phone looking at what Florida's doing. And then he not only left that job, he wound up going to work at Florida. So that's the point of using the HBCU to get his foot in the door and then not doing his job. I had to have conversations with, go above his head a few times to be quite frankly about it. And after the end of the day, he said, Florida job's open. I'm gone. No notice, no nothing. Just gone. And that's even at that level.
Right.
They want to come in and get, and not all the programs are perfect. Even with HBCUs, we've seen black coaches not get treated right. They get 2 years, all of a sudden they're out, or 3 years, or all of a sudden they didn't even get a full recruiting class, and they've been let go. So I think they go through the bigger whammy, and I think the on the women's side of women coaches probably have it even tougher.
I would think so, but I love the grace and the dignity and the hard work, the go get it done effort and mindset that I've seen with some of the women coaches that I've had the pleasure of meeting and watching them play and develop their players. Oh man, I mean, some of the women that are coming out of the HBCUs for me right now, phenomenal, because they've gone to other places and actually taking their game in the classroom and on the court to the next level. So to be able to sit back and experience that and see that is just an awesome thing. So kudos to all the coaches, men and women, because again, and I'll say this again because I know from experience, at the HBCU level, you were treated like family. I mean, there's a genuine concern about who you're going to be, what you're going to do when you put down the basketball, the football, the tennis racket. Who are you going to be? And I love that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did get someone that said, that he graduated from an HBCU. He didn't say where, but he said he had a bad experience in terms of the assistants, which is something totally different.
Definitely.
He said with counselors and everybody else. There's Fred.
Can you hear Trevor now?
There he is, Mr. Witty. It's
Fred,
an honor, sir.
Listen, Fred. Okay, it's 2000.
I'd be honored too, but it's good to hear you.
2022, Fred. Okay, so
I don't know what's going on with this thing. I know we got some military stuff going on, but that shouldn't be hindering what we're doing here.
Real quick, Fred. Trevor was holding down.
But go ahead, Trevor. You were making sense.
Oh, I'm glad. And the mere fact that you said that, Fred, I know that I was on the right track.
Always.
Fred, can you hear me, Fred?
Because even to your comments about the coaches and former players and all this kind of thing, because I've long had this thing because I've watched over the years, because when this whole Deion thing jumped up, I said, okay, but what's new about this? Because we've had former players who came over from who went to white schools, went on to play in the pros or whatever, and then they came over to HBCUs to get jobs, and some were good and some weren't. And and my favorite of all time is Rod Broadway.
Coach Broadway.
Rod he did an excellent job at A&T's, at Grambling, at Central. 3 different conferences, 3 different HBCU conferences, and 3 different national titles. What more can you ask? But that's not what we get a lot, because I remember, and I was glad to find that you weren't from Howard, so I could talk about them. But
wait a minute, watch yourself. I still do the play-by-play for Howard, so watch yourself.
I saw y'all last game. But nah, the guy came in who had played professionally, and I think he's at somewhere like William and Mary or somewhere like that now. But he came in stayed a year, maybe 2. His claim to fame was that he brought in the quarterback, the Panthers quarterback's brother.
You're talking about Coach Mike London and Kayla Newton.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he blew through so fast. I mean, come on.
You know what? Out of respect for Howard University and Coach London and the whole, there were different variables that played and into that, and nothing negative, but it was just different things. I can tell you, Fred, from personal experience, and actually being able to do being honored to be the play-by-play person for Howard University at the time during his tenure there, that everything was above board. It wasn't like he just came and now I'm gone. There were other factors that played a major role in him going to William and Mary. If I'm not mistaken, he's from that Tidewater area as well. So it's not like he was just trying to take advantage and being gone. Oh man, there were some major developments made with the program on and off the field. There was definitely unity amongst the program at the time that he was there. As I mentioned, Coach Brandon Marion, who was the architect of that go-go offense under Coach London. Did some big things going on to do better things. And Coach London, everything was above board when he was at Howard University. I have much respect for what he's done in the short time he was there.
Hey, I want to make sure, Fred, your mic is muted. 1 second. I want to make sure if you can hear me. I don't think he can hear me, Trevin. T-Mac's on the line. I'm going to go back to Fred. I'm going to shoot him a quick note. But incidentally, to your point about Mike London, Coach London, I had a chance to know him very well, and I keep in touch with him. And you're right. It was some stuff that
How's that?
Didn't come out before. That he didn't want to come out, and I take him for his word. I'll just say that. So right. I hear what you're saying, Trevor. T-Mac, we were talking about.
Now it seems that everybody's gone.
Nope. So Fred is in his own little world right now at the moment. I'm gonna pull him out in can so I can talk with him. T-Mac, we're talking about this splash of athletes coming, pro athletes, and coming in to HBCUs. We obviously mentioned Dion, and you got Cynthia Cooper. You got a bunch of different people. Your old running back Eddie George and guys like that that are coming in. Does this help somewhat? Some diversity at the coaching ranks and opportunities.
Well, absolutely. But see, the most important thing to me is that it gives more visibility to HBCUs. They've always had it, but it probably gives it a little bit more. The whole thing with Dion, I think that even though, like Fred said, it's not anything unique per se, but on an economic level, you saw the kind of money that was generated in the city of Jackson in Mississippi. And it's basically, to a certain extent, it's led to this thing now where we saw, I think it was yesterday, where the SWAC said they're going to be playing a series of games at Legion Field. I mean, they've been playing games at Legion Field for a while, but now, there's the possibility of more, lucrative stuff. The whole recruiting thing or what have you. Look, anything that's going to promote HBCUs and athletics, all for it. And it's not one of those things where any news is good news or what have you. But see, whether it's Hugh Jackson, whether it's Dion, whether it's Eddie George, but also let's not forget about the long-term folks. Look at what Willie Simmons has been able to do for FAMU. It took, in many ways, FAMU was still reeling from that NCAA investigation years ago. It took them there's been a lot of stops and starts. But once he got there, he really took FAMU even to another higher level. And you piggyback with what happened with Mike London with that big upset win years ago against UNLV. Anything that's going to put a positive light in HBCU sports, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, and I think in the long run, that's the most important thing. And it grows every day. Finally, we're going to get this HBCU combine going this weekend down in Louisiana. There's been a few more all-star showcases so that you don't have to go to the Senior Bowl or the East-West Shrine Bowl. You've got the Collegiate Bowl. You've got the HBCU Legacy Bowl. And that's the thing, more visibility, because the thing that I've always stressed is that HBCU sports in and of itself, with the history and with the visibility, can stand on its own. And with what we do, with what Fred does, with what Trevin does, and what the organization that we're all part of as well, that's going to keep promoting, because we're standing, the way I look at it is we're standing on the shoulders of guys like Sam Lacey and Bill Nunn Sr. and Bill Franklin and so many other folks who only a handful of people know about. But without them, there's no us. And again, I don't want to overemphasize, I don't want to underemphasize, but anything that is going to push the agenda for HBCU sports, I'm all for. And there's still more that needs to be done and can be done. And I hope if what these coaches or whatever is doing is going to push that, I'm all for it.
I want to make sure, Fred, if Fred, can you hear us now? Can you say something back, sir? Okay, he's still having some audio stuff going on there. Tony, one of the things that I thought about, especially, I'm glad you mentioned the HBCU Pro, football combine. If the barrage of talent coming as coaches to HBCUs will be sort of a catalyst to enough is enough. Now, it hasn't worked in the NFL, the Rooney Rule. We've seen, 9 openings in the NFL. 2 are already, given to offensive and defensive coordinators that did absolutely nothing for their teams at all, yet they got a job. Not a lot of experience. We still got Jim Caldwell out there. We still got Leslie Frazier out there, Eric Bieniemy, Byron Leftwich, and the list goes on and on. And I'd say 5 or 6 of those guys who come either from a Tony Dungy or someone along those lines that are there who are actually doing it. Eric Bieniemy with Andy Reid, Byron Leftwich with Tampa and Bruce Arians. They're actually calling plays. They won't get a job. And so when you look at the coaching trees that are coming in to college, in particular HBCUs, is that going to be enough to open the doors where some of our men and women are not making lateral moves, but like I said to Trevin, they're making moves to PWIs. Not to say the PWIs are superior at all. I'm not saying that, but just the opportunity. You can't tell me it can't be a Nick Saban. We've already seen Eddie Robinson and so on and so forth. There's a lot of Nick Sabans that look like us that if they had the opportunity of some of the SECs and Big Tens and Big 12s and all that stuff, Pac-12, would be doing the same type of thing.
It's always been about opportunity, or in this case, the lack thereof. I will say this with the NFL, and maybe I'm being Pollyanna. I do think that maybe 3 to 4 guys are going to get hired with these openings. I mean, I know it's easy. No, I do. I think it appears that Jacksonville is going to hire Leftwich, good, bad, or indifferent. I do believe that Brian Flores won't be on the sidelines long, and I also think whether they get to a Super Bowl or win it this year, I think it's going to be. I think Bieniemy's time has come as well. It's look, I've given up on the NFL in many ways. The Rooney Rule, unfortunately, is. I mean, you can't even call it affirmative action because it's not doing anything because they've already found ways to circumvent it. On the HBCU side, look, there's always going to be movement. There always has been movement. I use you look at Dooley at Southern. Again, you look at Simmons, as I pre-mentioned, at FAM. There was a guy got hired the other day at a SISE school. For the life of me, I can't remember who the name was. But
I guess what I'm asking you, T, is for every opportunity like that, you have the situation where they couldn't wait to run coach out of Florida State and then they Florida State still stink, or Charlie Strong. He was a dead man walking. He was a dead man walking at Texas. We knew that, and they didn't give him any opportunity.
All the more reason why the HBCUs have to, take it to the next level, because there's no and I think, to be honest with you, with the white school, I think it's worse with the white schools than it is in the NFL, to be quite honest, because there's still a plantation mentality there, even more so. And see, the one other thing that I think the HBCUs have to take advantage of is the NIL thing. And you're already seeing it on a small level. It's only been a year, but we're already seeing in the transfer portal where a lot of these kids are flipping from white schools to black schools. It's not just, I made such a big thing about Jackson State getting the, number 2 or number 3 recruit, but it's all these other moves that aren't getting the same publicity, that are just as good, if not more so, because that's how organizations get built. And look, the junior college route or the transfer route has always been there for HBCUs, but now it's even more viable. Throw in the visibility factor, throw in the fact that a lot of these, people know who Bowie State is now. People know about Langston now. People know about Miles College and Tuskegee and all the. Now, look, they're always going to know Grambling and Morgan and the big names or what have you. But if some of these other, if you also start to get some of these kids to go to these other schools, you get somebody that goes to a Winston, you get somebody that goes to a Payne College or what have you. That's how it starts, and it's not going to happen overnight. But go ahead.
But I was going to say, it's always going to be these idiots out here that are either want to be contrarian for the sake of it. They want to. But let me finish. He's got a show, a podcast. This particular guy, a national show. I'm not going to say his name, give any justification, but he went on about the kid that Deion signed, and he was the number 1 recruit in the nation. Instead of going to Florida State and Alabama, he went. He wants to go play for Deion. He's like, this kid is wasting his college career. He's never going to get seen. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the quality of talent. They don't play the quality of talent. And he's just going on, which wasn't shocking to me, but in this climate was shocking to me. And you're always going to have those, and I get that. But it goes back to us as reporters and people who believe in black college sports. And just like I said earlier, the black colleges that actually produce terrific, sensational people, talent across the board. We're always going to have to talk about it because you're always going to have these idiots with a national microphone talking this crap.
Look, Malcolm talked about the house Negro and the field Negro for years. That's how I look at it with these guys. There's a reason why Kamal Bell goes after a Bill Cosby. There's a reason why, Jason Whitlock is the whitest black man in America. Those folks are always going to be there. They've been there from slavery days. They'll be there, whatever. They're always going to be folks. But we cannot allow them spewing their BS to stop what we do. And I know it can be frustrating or what have you, but you literally have to treat them, like the dirt on the ground. You step over them and you keep moving. You step on them and keep moving. And see,
this guy was non-African American too, by the way.
That's and again, that's even less of a surprise because because see, here's the thing: we're in a climate now where people, exactly. Because see, before it had always been sort of snickered behind closed doors or whatever, but now in this age now, where there are white folks that feel emboldened to let you know exactly where they stand, to me it makes it a lot easier to do it because at least at least there's no doubt. And again, Makes it a lot easier. Again, I'll put it this way. I'll use, I guess, a sports analogy in a sense, sort of like the old Raiders, where Al Davis used to always talk about how, teams say, well, they'll give us what the defense will take. We'll take what the defense will give us. Instead, we're going to do what we do. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to do what we do, and damn the critics, because they're going to be there. They're going to be there. It's just a matter of how we allow them to try to, mess with the narrative. But see, that's where it comes for us. This is why we have to control the narrative, because remember, back in the day, the forefathers that I mentioned before, they had a forum, but they didn't have the kind of forum that we all have now. And it's incumbent upon us to keep doing what we're doing, and damn the torpedoes, because there's going to be torpedoes, there's going to be elephants, there's going to be what have you. But you know what? Lead, follow, or get the hell out the way.
There you go. You're right. And T, final point on that is that listen, you've been saying for years, and I've been using that phrase, or using what you said over the last few years. I'm tired, nor will I apologize for being black. I don't owe you anything. I don't have to explain anything. If you don't get it, and I said this to some people today, if you don't get it now, if you don't see this football game or this game is one team on the other side, you're going to stand on the side of righteousness, or you're going to stand on the side of evil, then that's on you. But I'm not going to apologize for who I am. And HBCUs, is my point, shouldn't have to apologize for who they are. Sure, every institution has issues. That's a Captain Obvious. That's like white folks saying all lives matter. Well, of course, all lives matter. If you're a human being, of course you care about mankind. All lives do matter, but all lives ain't getting killed on the street by cops, getting discriminated. So don't give me this, all institute. Yeah, I know. So, but specifically, HBCU should never have to apologize for the beautiful men and women and talented women that they produce. I mean, it's plain and simple.
It's that. And look, just the legacy alone,
right?
Just the legacy alone again. It's you're standing with giants. You're on the shoulders of giants.
That's right. I want to switch gears to baseball. The first thing, as we wrap up, congratulations to Big Papi, David Ortiz, 77%, 77.9, almost 78, Hall of Fame. He's going in. Of course, Barry, 66, Roger, 65. I saw, Scott Rowlands came up a little bit, but he's still at 63 or so on. And the list goes on and on. Some other ones, Kurt Schilling and, Todd Held, Billy Wagner, Andrew Jones. But I heard Roger Clemens said, listen, he took the road of Jim Rice and some others, Harry Carson in football. I'm not even worried about it. I'm not thinking about it. I don't care, whatever. Whether he believes that or feels that, that's whatever. But that's what he said. But here's my thing. Listen, two points. If you're going to keep out certain players because of the steroid era, then keep them all out, first of all. And then as it relates to Barry Bonds, Barry was already heading for Hall of Fame when he was in Pittsburgh before 2000. He was already winning Gold Gloves. He was already batting over 300. He was already doing all that. So in case of him, and you can make the case for Roger Clemens too and some others, but Barry especially, he was already there. Listen, nobody knows. It's almost like I said, you might see, this is a weird analogy, but I said to someone, they started laughing. You might see the perfect couple. They look like everything is fine, right? And your relationship is going bad, and you just look at them and you think there's no way he's cheating or she's cheating or whatever, just based on what they look like and the halo over the head type mentality. These reporters don't know jack. They don't know who cheating unless you're Rafael Palmeiro, who it really seemed to be blatant, and a couple other guys, Jose Canseco. You don't know who's cheating. You don't know. So if you don't know, get off your self-righteous box, sports reporters, sports writers who vote on these guys, and put the guys in. It's not the hall of shame. It's not the hall of morality. If that's the case, Tony, nobody should be in, and most of them. You can go all the way back to the beginning of baseball, even before Jackie Robinson, after Jackie Robinson. It's a bunch of cheaters and liars and crook and betting on baseball, all this other stuff going on. If you're going to make it about that, then there should not be anything, any Hall of Fame at all. And that's really what it boils down to. No way, Barry Bonds. Now he's got to go to what, the Veterans Committee, I think, to get in. It's ridiculous.
I've been repeating this argument, I guess, for the last couple of days. I will just stay consistent. The Hall of Fames, in and of themselves, for the big four, football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. In every decade over the last, say, 5 to 6 decades, there's at least 5, maybe 10 players you say to yourself, why aren't they in? They should be in, or what have you. Where baseball has always hurt itself is with its utter arrogance in regards to trying to make their Hall of Fame so exclusive in the sense. But see, here's the problem. Now, you want to keep Bonds out because of steroids. Okay. You want to keep Clemens out because of steroids. Okay. You don't want to let Piazza go in the first year because of the hint of steroids. Okay. Here's the thing, and here's the contradictions. The commissioner who oversaw that whole era is in the Hall of Fame. You talk about the history of the prejudice of the sport that you've had, and you try to make it up by overindulging, not so much overindulging, but all of a sudden recognizing the Negro Leagues that overstood the gentleman's agreement is in the Hall of Fame. Contradictions of contradictions of contradictions. I have said this also before. Every living Hall of Famer should have a vote. And matter of fact, their vote should have more weight than a sports writer. Now, will they have their prejudices as well? Yes, but you know what? I'm going to listen to a former player who's actually been in the wars as opposed to some fat ass on a keyboard.
And I don't. And look, David Ortiz, clearly, to me, in my opinion,
it's a no-brainer that he should be in. Right. I don't see. That's not the argument. The argument is the hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy.
He played in the same era as these guys. So if you put him in, then what?
But see, again, it's it's the crazy thing is it's not about Big Papi.
Right.
It's about the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
More than anything else. Because see, now, basically now it's the Miss America pageant.
Right.
It's basically the Miss America pageant now.
And they kept forget about Bonds and Clemens. These are Scott Rowland was one of the best defenders in the game. Kurt Schilling's got, some numbers. Yeah, I know you like Todd Helton when he played, and Andrew Jones.
But even with that, look, Kurt Flood,
right?
Dave Parker, Dave Stewart. Look. It's and see again, baseball to me is the most egregious because of its arrogance.
Right.
Now football. No, look, football. There's still a lot of football guys that still should be in. I think Cliff Branch should be in. I think it's a travesty that Jim Marshall isn't in. And if someone says he's not in because of the wrong way one, I'm going to personally come to your house and beat you and your family if that's the case.
Right.
But baseball sticks out because of their arrogance, because of their hypocrisy. That's the reason why people get so angry. Now, see, here's the thing. Also, now the other thing that sort of spears out now, of course, is Peter Edward Rose. Because see, when you realize the now incestuous relationship that baseball and all these sports have with FanDuel and DraftKings, and it ain't nothing but gambling.
Right.
But how you gonna be in the forefront of all of that, and then try to be holier than thou with Pete Rose? Now,
Roger Goodell, remember, 5 years ago maybe said we will not be a part of this gambling thing, and now it's like, well, we're gonna make sure it's nice, it's fan friendly. With
they got the no. Cut to the chase. We're gonna get our cut.
Right.
That's all.
Yep.
This has got nothing to do with fan friendly or whatever. What's our cut?
Right.
That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And all the four sports is like, and all the four sports. And look, Rose hurt himself by lying about it for years and then admitting it when he could make some money to write a book. I think that's the one thing that that hurts, that has always hurt Rose over the years. He took a Donald Trump approach to it and lied and only admitted it when he was able to put some more money in his pocket.
Right. The final thing I wanted to mention, and I bring Gary Sheffield up because here's what I'm thinking. Again, I'm going to another story. So like we talked before, John Gruden gets fired, because of Washington investigation. Doesn't get fired for using the N-word. And well, not using the N-word, but talking about DeMaurice Smith in a defamed way in terms of how he looks and his lips and all this other stuff. Like he doesn't get fired for that. He gets fired for the homophobic stuff and the stuff he said about women. Gary Sheffield got 40%. Now, you're telling me that I think he's all of fame. You're telling me that the other guys got 65 and all that kind of percentage, and Todd Helton 50s and all that stuff. They play, and you're holding them out because primarily, right? They played in the steroid era. I think Gary's not getting in because of some of the things he said about baseball and race and everything else. I really believe that's why.
Absolutely. See again, it goes, the one constant in all of this is the hypocrisy. You can't do that. That's the problem. It's the hypocrisy.
Yeah.
It's the hypocrisy. Now, to be quite honest, the Veterans Committee class this year is stellar because of Hodges, because of Jim Cott, because of Oliva, because of Buck O'Neill. These are guys that should have been in a long time ago. And it's not gonna be a disgrace when Clemens and Bonds do get in, because they will get in eventually. There's no doubt in my mind they will. But it's just so bothersome that they want they want to play the holier than thou arrogance. That's the biggest problem with it. With accuracy, if you're going to do history, you've got to do the entire history. You can't cherry pick the history and then wonder why people look at you as being a hypocrite.
Because and bottom line, my point with Gary is, it's okay to cheat, but if you say something about race and against baseball, then you're going to be at the bottom of the pit if you think you're going to get no Hall of Fame. But I'll leave you with this too. And T, this. You understand, the history of baseball. Cheating's been going on forever. So why is steroids different? People cheating all kinds of ways, doctoring the ball, and for every Barry Bonds, that hater that says he shouldn't be in because he cheated. Guess what? The pitcher probably was cheating too. He doctored the ball too. So you're gonna hold him accountable, but not some of these other pitchers, or even with Clemens. You know, you hold him out because you think he cheated, but what about the hitter on the other end? Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't pick and choose. You know, at the end of the day, like you said, the hypocrisy of it.
And again, it just, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but that's what it comes at the end of the day. That's the one constant. The one constant is the hypocrisy of it all. And the sport still tries to hold itself as holier than thou. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot of white noise at the end of the day.
And ultimately, really, the great ones, right, that are not in, they know how great they are. Obviously, yeah, it would be, oh, I'm in the Hall of Fame, but they know. I mean, you know, you don't need these geeky dudes to vote you in. You know, Jim Rice said that all the time, and everybody respected Jim Rice. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's a very fascinating list that didn't get in. Some guys got some more votes this time, but still fell short. And of course, the two big ones, Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens. T, before we go, let people know about Black Athlete Sports Network, sir.
www.BASN Newsroom is our website. We are also on Facebook at Stills Soul of Sports, and we are also on Instagram, BASN_newsroom.
Appreciate you, man. Listen, you have a good weekend. We will talk next week, man. Be careful.
Take care.
All right. Always good to have Tony T-Mac McLean on, talking some baseball and other sports. Longtime friend. Hopefully not snowing up there in my native Connecticut. I know this is the time of the year from really November to March, April, even sometimes with us. That's it for us. If you miss any part of the broadcast, there's a few places you can go to check out the show. If you have Fire Stick, you go and download the Big Mind, MIND, entertainment app. There you can find the Batchelor News Radio Show. You'll see interviews and different shows there. YouTube, we encourage you to go there. If you're on this broadcast, sign up at YouTube, subscribe there. The more the merrier for us. LA Batchelor at YouTube. So you can check us out there live when we're on. Then you can go back if you missed it there. We're on all the podcast platforms: iTunes, TuneIn, Spotify, Spreaker, Podbean. We're all over the place. And you can watch it and check out the links at Facebook, Pad Nation on Facebook, Pad Nation, the number 2 at Twitter, Pad Nation 2 at Twitter. You can watch it live, or you can go back. And you can also subscribe there, sign up, Pad Nation, or at Facebook. We're also on Instagram, LA Batchelor, and WCOM, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, our sister radio station there, WCOM.org. You can check us out online there and check out the show there as well. Finally, if you want the audio version of this, the rebroadcast is there at our website, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro, thebatchelornews.airtime.pro. The show specifically is on every day at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Enjoy. Appreciate you checking in. You be careful, be blessed. We'll talk with you soon on the Batchelor News Radio Show on the Batchelor News Radio Network.